You might be wondering what this swath of orange is in front of us. This represents the desecration that will occur across southern Oregon for 232 miles if this pipeline is built. And it's really ugly.
Following the woman with the baton, easy for the first group. The second group will be following the second side. But again, we'll sing it all the way through. You'll recognize the words because they're quite repetitive. And we hope you'll join us.
off, and he's really busy, and they must be mistaken. But they called. And in my mind's eye, I instantly recalled 3 of us sitting in a backyard the summer before last, planning to go to Portland to participate in Portland Rising Tide's big summer heat event on the Columbia River. Were some of you there? Right? Arranging carpools and making signs, these KXL Pledge of Resistance co-conspirators wondered aloud, how could we bring the passion, creativity, and joy of a 350 chapter to Eugene? One of us piped up, I just talked with Bill McKibben. What makes 350 organizing so successful? It's really the thoughtful, intelligent, fun, and passionate leadership of Bill McKibben. It's not that we aren't worried beyond belief about the state of the climate. It's that we together take that concern and channel it to find creative ways to engage everyone in the movement, to make big change fast. It's my pleasure today to introduce Bill.
Well, hello everybody in the beautiful forests and mountains, Oregon. I wish to heck I was there with you, especially because this work you guys do, the PIELC, is so important. The idea, changing currents, is, well, I mean, it's the central metaphor in a way for what our world is about right now. I started writing about this 25 years ago. I wrote the first book for a general audience on climate change, a book called The End of Nature, and it focused on the way that those physical currents were starting to drive, that the tide of carbon washing into the atmosphere as in a few decades we burned millions of years worth of accumulated biology, the way that those tides of carbon were beginning to trap heat on an unprecedented scale. The extra heat we trap is the equivalent of about 400,000 Hiroshima-sized explosions a day. And then the currents that were set off in the physical world by all that extra energy in a closed system, the way that heat began to melt ice. And now most of the summer sea ice in the Arctic is gone. That decades-old, no, millennia-old, meters-thick ice disappearing. The way, as we learned this time last year, that the Great West Antarctic ice sheets now started to come unmoored and begin to melt away, that the currents of the oceans themselves are beginning to shift, to slow as changes in salinity from increased precipitation alter our marine hydrology, the way that terrestrial hydrology is beginning to shift in fundamental ways that you along the West Coast are all too well aware of. We watch your shrinking snowpack. And because what we've discovered in the last 4 or 5 years is that there is a counter current, that there's a different currency almost. That if the fossil fuel industry has all the money on Earth, there are ways in which to match that money. Not with more money, we'll never outspend Exxon, but with a different kind of currency. The currency of movement, passion, spirit, creativity. Sometimes we need to be willing to spend our bodies and go to jail. And as we've done that, we've begun to see more success than I think many of us reckoned possible. We started this fight over the Keystone pipeline. We had no prayer. The National Journal, the Insider newspaper of D.C., had polled its energy experts, 300 people up on the Hill, lobbyists and things, and 91% said TransCanada would have their permit before 2011 was out. It's 2015, and they haven't built the pipeline. And yet, I'm not sure they're going to. And that's because more people went to jail on anything in 30 years in this country. It's because more people wrote public comments than on grassroots activist groups led first of all by indigenous people up in Alberta, really on both sides of the border, farmers and ranchers in places like Nebraska, combined effectively with big green environmental school groups or whoever, and together fought a pitched battle. And there are more now battles like that because it had some success a lot of other places, and people doing the same thing over there on the West Coast with the valiant fights against these coal ports. There were 6 of them proposed a few years ago. We beat 4, we're going to beat the other 2. Think about the fights about a new oil port in, say, Vancouver, Washington, or up and down the West Coast, but not just the West Coast. Think about the East Coast United States, where somehow, with just incredible triumph, with great local organizing, they were able to force the governor of New York to ban fracking. That's right overseas. The last few weeks, Wales and Scotland have joined France in banning fracking. Think about what the Pacific Islanders and the 350 Pacific Network did last fall, the same weekend that the rest of us were marching 400,000 strong in the streets of New York City in the biggest demonstration of anything in this country in a long time. That same weekend, there were out across the Pacific and all those islands that are going to disappear as rises this century. Indigenous people building traditional canoes and taking them to Australia and using them to blockade the largest coal port in the world. Those canoes shutting in for a day the biggest ships on Earth and helping spark a movement that is going to block, I am certain, the largest proposed coal mine on our planet in the Galilee Valley of Australia. On and on and on. This countercurrent is remarkably beautiful to see in action. My old friend Naomi Klein has called it our carbon tax on the fossil fuel industry. Since we can't get the legislature to enact a real carbon tax, we will impose it with our bonds. And while we're doing it, our brothers and sisters who are engineers are busy working the other side of this equation. If we've got a fossil freeze underway, they've got a solar thaw underway. The price of solar panels keeps dropping down 75% in the last 6 years. Deutsche Bank just said fall another 40% in the next 2. As that happens, the economic rationale of people like the Koch brothers begins to evaporate. I do not know how this fight ends. Look, the physics, the climate change that we have set in motion have done, and that momentum is strong. I do not know how it ends, but I do know that there is now a real fight underway, and I'm so glad that y'all are there, part of it. It is a fight for justice above all, because of all the things that have ever happened to the poorest and most marginalized people on this planet. They theft from them of the basic physical stability of the earth on which all our lives depend, but in the most direct sense, those who must each day earn their daily bread from the soil. That theft is on a scale that we've never seen before. So thank heaven that y'all are fighting back. It's a great honor to get to be shoulder to shoulder with you in it all, and I will look forward to seeing you down the road, in the streets, in jail, although some of you are lawyers, so if you're found in jail, we'll look forward to seeing you waiting on the other side to get us out. But God bless for all the work that you're doing, and on we go. Thanks.
So our next speaker is an author, an educator, an ecologist, and a farmer. He is highly lauded for his writing on food, ecology, and conservation in the American West. He's the recipient of several awards, including a MacArthur Fellowship, the Pew Award for Conservation and the Environment, the Southwest Book Award, the Western States Book Award, and the Society for Conservation Biology Distinguished Service Award. Gary Paul Nabhan received his BA in Environmental Biology from Prescott College, and then his MS in Plant Sciences and PhD in Arid Lands Resource Sciences from the University of Arizona. Today, he is the Kellogg Endowed Chair in Sustainable Food Systems at the University of Arizona's Southwest Center. But over the span of his varied career, Gary has been much more than a university professor. He founded the conservation nonprofit and seed-saving clearinghouse, Native Seed Search. He helped establish the 190,000-acre Ironwood Forest National Monument. And by promoting collaboration and shared vision between diverse stakeholders on the West's working landscapes, he helped form what's known as the Radical Center, a movement to bring all stakeholders to the table in the pursuit of ecological conservation. As author or editor of 24 books, Gary Nabhan has explored topics ranging from the crucial importance of pollinators, the Middle East spice route, the ethnobotany of chili peppers, how farming sustainably can help mitigate climate change, and the role of native foods in promoting public health and preventing diabetes. Through all of his writing, Gary Nabhan has promoted a holistic view of how what we eat affects our communities, our environment, and our lives. 20 years ago, we lost Wallace Stegner, famous author, who was known as the Dean of Western Writers, and I like to think that surely Gary Nabhan is a candidate to fill that chair. His writing is captivating, smart, inspiring, and we're very lucky to have him here today. Please join me in welcoming Gary Paul Nabhan.
Well, greetings, earthlings, seedlings, ducklings, and goslings. I like the diversity of lings out there in this audience. Maybe there's some ling cod even among you. I love to see Bill McKibben in those stripes, don't you? I don't think he ever changes clothes after they let him out of jail. I'm here to do a different dance than some of my friends that I think is a complementary dance to what they've been talking about. I obviously adore Bill and his courageousness, and Kathy Dean Moore is one of my heroes, and her courageousness. And if this seems like a gentler, more conciliatory talk, so be it. I'm doing it because I think that the major thing that is ripping this country apart is the divisive politics and rhetoric of dualistic thinking, where we are telling people we have to choose between the wild and the domesticated, choose between helping wild nature and helping marginalized cultures, and I believe that's in our hearts to help both. So let me walk through some ways that that's happening, and you can judge yourselves if this is complementary to or antagonistic with some of the other things you've heard from our speakers, all of whom and I respect, and I'm grateful to be here to listen to them. I'm going to be talking about collaborative conservation in the West, the region that we're in, and although ranching country is in question in terms of some of its land management, we live in an area where ranches, as much as farmlands and wilderness, have been part of the fabric for over 100 years, and it's that mosaic that I'm interested in talking about, and the mosaic of people engaged in it. Whoops, some funny words there. And so I'm going to tell you two parables about how we might get past divisive politics for a kind of earth justice that potentially helps all the range of people that you see in that photo, from indigenous peoples who have been here longer than anyone else to recent immigrants who want a future for their kids. And I'd like to ask each of you how much of your effort do you want to go toward fostering collaborations versus winning conflicts, to heal wounds. This is probably the most divisive Congress we've ever had. We have people who never walk across an aisle or listen to another perspective. And as Daniel Kemmis said, even public hearings are not about hearing, but saying your fair statement and then leaving before you listen to anyone else. So I'm going to talk about the Radical Center. My friend Courtney White did a remarkable thing about 15 years where he threw 8 of us into a room after a larger discussion. It was the Bill DeBreezes and Teresa Jordans and Bill McDonald's and Paul Johnsons and Rick Knights of the world. And they asked us to form a manifesto for the Radical Center. Every 6 hours, a pizza was slid under the door. We weren't allowed to get out until we found some common ground. And the term Radical Center was introduced to us. It's an older term from Bill McDonald, another MacArthur fellow who helped bring ranchers, environmentalists together for the Malpai Borderlands Group, one of the first ranching and environmental forums. I don't want to say that there are not debates there, that everyone is in agreement, but they move on the 90% of the work that they can agree with. And it reminds me of that remarkable statement from Wendell Berry years ago that the most tragic conflict in the history of conservation is between conservationists and the ranchers and farmers, because it's so unnecessary. So I think in many cases what I've experienced through whatever you want to call the food movement, I'm not really happy about the terms locavores and things like that. I think there's values embedded in this much deeper and broader and more diverse. But what I've seen is that people from the far right and far left are almost touching together in what I call the ideological horseshoe. There's some things that they want for their community, wildness protected nearby, healthy food for their children. They'd rather have with solutions and have the government bless them than to see everything done top down. And some of these values may appeal to you, some not, but it's the constellation that has brought many of these coalitions together. And over the last quarter century, these kinds of collaborations have sprung up over the West. This is about 12, 15 of the ones that have just occurred within the last 20 or so years in about 9 states. And there's probably 2 or 3 times that. And I should say that they're not exclusively ranchers or farmers or academic environmentalists. Sometimes it's people who are gardeners or hunters or wild foragers. Tribes like the Navajo Nation and the Hopi Nation have been involved in the Diablo Trust Fund. So these are much more diverse than you might imagine at first onset. The Radical Center then is a crossroads where various values, cultures, ideologies, and faiths intersect rather than ignoring one another's values. We try to grapple with them and find where there may be common ground without each person compromising their own values. It's place-based collaboration in most places. What brings people together is the same thing that brings most of you here, the love of the land. It's not a novel idea. Wherever people have put aside differences to nurture cohesive communities, diverse and cohesive communities, the collaborative spirit has somehow guided our ethics, policies, and practices. It's not a new idea. Aldo Leopold and the founder of the Soil Conservation Service were talking about cooperative conservation to Midwestern farmers in Wisconsin over 60 to 80 years ago in landscapes that had been ravaged by a combination of drought and inappropriate management practices. So it these coalitions come with the recognition that what's worked in the past may not work in the future. It's not glorifying or romanticizing ranching or farming traditions. And now, they were brought together, those first alliances, because of urgent problems. The urgent problems of the Dust Bowl. People were starving after drought and poor land used degraded soils and water, forage, livestock, wildlife, and livelihoods. So there were many different reasons that people came to the table. But what I want to emphasize is once people leave the table, go out and work together healing the land and are no longer villainizing the person that they're working with, but are in an arroyo, a down-cut water course, working together, somehow they get beyond the labels and the categorical conditions and begin to find some common ground. And I think the most remarkable thing that's the least discussed in land conservation topics is that the work that these communities began to do with Aldo Leopold and Hugh Bennett in the 30s and 40s taught people to work together at a level that has had enormous social, cultural, and ecological benefits to their communities decades later. And the irony is that one of the most successful co-ops in the United States, Crop, that has its foods labeled under the name of Organic Valley, started right in Coon Valley in the driftless area of Wisconsin. It now includes farmers of many different states. But that's brought $100 million of profits and royalties and benefits back to communities, organic food production with wildland habitats on farms and livestock pastures. And as one of the founders of Crop said when I went to talk to him, Kurt Miney and I went up to his door when we saw a sign that said, proud founder of the Crop Collective. We said, how did that feel like decades ago when, the ideas of collectives and stuff like that during the MacArthur era were actually suspect? And he said, well, my neighbors and even my family called me a communist until the first $1 million of royalty checks and dividends had come in, and then they all wanted to be communists. In the West, over the last 20 years, just 7 of these many landscape alliances have protected land and rebuilt community economies in lasting ways by safeguarding a minimum of 3.8 million acres of rangelands and forests for ranching, livelihoods, wildlife habitat, through conservation easements and many other means. Conservation easements is just a tagline for a variety of protection practices. It's involved these 7 groups alone involved well over 250 state, federal, nonprofit, and for-profit partners in a variety of on-the-ground, tangible benefits to land and wildlife. And they've hosted festivals, field days, many other things that have exposed this work to the larger public so that they're trying to heal this urban-rural divide that's been so divisive. Respectful dialogue in the field about what the land needs has been part of nearly every one of these groups we know. So we learn to be courteous again, we learn to be civil, and we learn to listen. And that was the remarkable thing about Aldo Leopold. In addition to being one of our great wilderness advocates, week after week during his time with Coon Valley, he showed up over an hour away from his house and just listened to what farmers and hunters and livestock producers felt that they needed to do and what the land needed. How many of us as conservationists cultivate that skill of listening as our primary way of working with communities? And that leads to real work. I've had the benefit of having about 30 organizations work with me to give an award to a Hispanic ranch manager named Joe Quiroga. He doesn't even own a ranch. About 18 years ago, he looked out and said, the land needs for the water to slow down here because the erosive activity is scouring out all the wildlife habitat. And on his own, with a crowbar, a come along, and a bumper, He's built over 1,300 gabions and rock check dams that are now bringing back quarter-mile and half-mile flows of streams that hadn't flowed in 50 years, and he did it by himself. Well, he says, I didn't do it by myself, I had to come along. And now he's teaching his grandchildren. We have a thing called Earth Care Youth Corps in our community of Patagonia, the pollinator capital of the world, not only to do this work and plant plants for pollinators alongside these restored water courses, but we've recently acquired 1,250 acres that is the only place in the United States with 5 predatory felines using it as a corridor. This is 12 miles north of the Mexican border, and there's a 150-mile corridor now that connects them with the Sierra Madre with only 2 highways across that whole 150 miles. We have jaguars, ocelots, jaguarundis, bobcats, and mountain lions all using that corridor. So this is not just about preserving ranch land, this is preserving the connectivity that we need between protected areas to make the protected areas of more value. Another benefit is that some of the former facilitators of this dialogue that got skin in the game really early, like Rick Knight in Colorado and Dennis Maroney, a rancher and ecological farmer in southern Arizona, have really closed the divide, closed the gap between ranchers and environmentalists. If you're at their table, there's no labels on anyone at the table. They're all rowing in the same direction. And I would argue that the western states that have put this divisiveness behind in some of their valleys or other landscapes, where ranchers, environmentalists, and local food activists have found ways to collaborate on a long-term basis, their innovations are protecting more wildlife and also creating more livable wages and livelihoods than any other places in the West I go to. If you go to Nevada, it's still in conflict. If you go to other places of the West where these alliances have been strong for over 15 years, you go into Flagstaff, Arizona, and the Diablo Burger restaurant puts a human face on ranching to 40,000 people every year that didn't know what was going out on that land, and tells about pronghorn animal conservation and the presence of condors and wolves in that same landscape. Shared interest in healthy food is one of my interests. It need not be your interest. Probably some of you don't ever eat, but it's allowed kind of a healing of the urban-rural divide and generated pride in diverse communities. So I was really touched this summer while we were negotiating and debating and trying to hold Monsanto's feet to the fire. And when I went into Ferguson, Missouri, I saw people planting milkweeds for monarchs on the sides of their gardens, even under all the stress that they were in, because they're making room not only for food plants, but for wildlife plants. These efforts have not just benefited the Marlboro man, the kind of cowboy that you see on TV that has so little to do with most of the West. It's also helping families as a whole of many cultures, women, minority producers, and whole communities as well. And it's helping keep some of their traditions going, but more importantly, I think it's creating some of the innovations that we need to deal with climate change. And the most generous of these people are now helping others, including veterans who wish to ranch or farm as a living, to get access not only to land, but the learning that they need to manage that land properly. And my dear friend Severin from Greenhorns will be talking to you here at this conference, but this is important because right now we're facing the largest land transfer within this next generation that's happened in American history. At least 200 million acres of lands will change hands, and perhaps as much as 400 million, and developers are looking at a fourth to fifth of that to pull out of wildlands vegetation, to pull out of food production, and we need to make sure that there's people on that land that care about it as much as you do. So it's up to us, and most of you are already doing it, and I want to thank you to that work, to support not only the land alliances in your own communities. The community work is the toughest to do, but the most important, but the people that are making a difference in those alliances. Working at the balance box and with our forks for the products and values that our country needs. And I don't care about Hillary Clinton or anyone else for president. I want Ma Joe to be the next president. So the big work in places where gotten this 3.8 or 4 million acres of land permanently protected. And I just want to remind you of that Einstein quote, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Can we take some other approaches other than the divisiveness that is ripping apart our communities? And I need to say that collaboration is not a panacea, just like litigation or regulation isn't. We need all three of those tools, and I thank those of you who are better at the other two than I am. But all three are needed, and we just have to rebalance it in a way that keeps the land and our communities alive. So let me turn to the second parable real quickly, because it's taken most of the last 16 months. I was in Barbara Kingsolver's living room when the word hit that monarchs had reached their lowest numbers in American history. 97% of them have vanished over the last, 13 years. This year was the second lowest population numbers ever. The media said, oh, they're coming back up, but it's still the second lowest. We've wiped out 1 billion to 1.5 billion milkweeds in the summer breeding habitat of the Corn Belt, and that red bloody color you see there is the NACWA map from USGS of glyphosate use that Tara Curry put on the screen in another session. So the most iconic insect of North America is now being a candidate for federal listing, something that would be unimaginable to our grandparents. And so this is a paradigm shift. This is not about curbing the extinction of a single species, but the ecological relationships between a plant and animal, for which our Endangered Species Act is currently ill-equipped. And what I want to say about that is that as we learn that M&M numbers reach the lowest ever levels, make way for monarchs, turn to forming the largest coalition of farmers, educators, scientists, and farmers, farmers and farmers. Well, we need both of them. I think one of those was supposed to be restorationists together to get traction on monarch action rather than hearing idle talk. And within 2 weeks of starting our organization, after Barbara Kingsolver suggested it, we helped facilitate a letter signed by 450 people from Mexico, Canada, the US, several European countries, asking the presidents of Mexico and the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada to take immediate action for a continent-scale effort to recover monarchs. The letter was hand-delivered to them. We made the New York Times with all the listed signers.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. To start things off, I'd like to bring Sheena Fortner up to the stage for a special announcement. Sheena?
Hi, good afternoon. I wanted to inform you, unfortunately, Cyril Scott of the Rosebud Lakota Sioux, due to unforeseen circumstances, will not be with us this afternoon and will not be at the conference with Paula Antone. And so I was asked to give an update of what's going on with the Keystone XL. And the Rosebud Lakota Sioux wanted to say thank you for each individual for coming here and opening your hearts and your ears to listen to the crisis that's going on with this Keystone XL. And so currently, the bill was vetoed by President Obama. And so the Rosebud wanted to say thank you. And on that note, what's looming is the permit and the State Department. And so what's been established is a national permit that has to be required approval of each state. And so what I'm here to inform you is May 5th through 8th in South Dakota, there's a Public Utilities Commission. And so the Rosebud Sioux has taken a different approach to fighting the Keystone XL. As Bill McKibben said earlier, we don't have a prayer. However, the Rosebud Lakota Sioux do. And so they've established a spirit camp. March 29th, 2014, the Rosebud Lakota people decided that this needs to be a prayer because this is the protection of our land and our water. And so for 1 year, on March 29th until currently today, the Rosebud people have set up teepees to block the path of the Keystone XL. And someone has been there every day, tending a fire and holding a presence, saying, no more. And so I just wanted to come and to make you aware of Shielding the People that's being sponsored and coordinated by Paula Antone. And so if anyone would like to participate before the public hearing, May 5th through 8th, please send comments, as you can see here, to the PUC at state.southdakota.us or personally to 500 East Capitol Avenue. So once more, from the doorway in to the doorway out, the Rosebud Lakota Sioux would like to say thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you, Sheena. Unfortunate that Cyril Scott is not here, but we do have a wonderful speaker to take his place today. To introduce our next keynote speaker, please welcome Professor John Bonine.
No, I am not the speaker. I met Tony Oposa when he was about 3 feet tall and about 6 years old in his home. Little did I know that Tony Boy would become world famous. Tony's father, Tony Oposa Sr., decided to file a lawsuit against the Secretary of the Environment of the Philippines to cancel all remaining timber sales, all remaining timber licenses. Big deal, right? We do it all the time, right? How many people here have filed a timber appeal, raise your hands, or been involved in a lawsuit, actually stand up, or filed some other direct action to protest a timber sale? Are any anti-timber people here who have done any of those things? Well, Tony Sr. had a different idea, or an unusual idea, I guess you could say, which he got from a book written by a professor a law professor, while he was studying for a master's in law at Harvard University. The idea was that destroying the last 2% of uncut forests in the Philippines was not only a stupid idea, but it was a violation of the Constitution of the Philippines. And he had another idea, that his son and other children had the right to protect their future, and even the future of the children that his kids would have someday. That is, generations yet unborn. The case minors of Oposa, that is, he was the senior, they were the not yet adult minors of Oposa, versus Factoran, the Secretary of the Environment of the Philippines, was decided by the Supreme Court of the Philippines in 1993. In this decision, the Supreme Court said that future generations had legal standing to file a lawsuit through the personage of children currently living. And the Supreme Court furthermore said that the right to a balanced ecology, which is in the Philippines Constitution, unlike the US Constitution, which has no such right, unlike 45 states of this country, which do not have this right in their state constitutions, but the Philippines Constitution, with its right to a balanced ecology, the Supreme Court said, required that the forest be protected, and unless the court acted, the court said, quote, the day would be not too far when all else would be lost, not only for the present generation, but also for those to come. Generations which stand to inherit nothing but parched earth, incapable of sustaining life. And then the Supreme Court of the Philippines went further, saying that even the right to a balanced ecology, even if it were not written in the Constitution, the court would enforce it anyway because no civilization can exist without a protected environment. Now, that's the kind of court I like. You may wonder where Tony Jr., that is Tony Boy, is now. Well, what's he doing and what would you expect him to be doing? He went to law school. He's 29 years old and he's now a lawyer and working on sustainable energy law. And another of Tony's kids, Anna, his daughter, is another environmental activist. Tony Oposa is a man with big ideas. The next windmill at which he tilted was the pervasive pollution of Manila Bay, which had been abused for decades and continued to be abused by municipal pollution, by industrial pollution, by unplanned growth, by the lack of attention or action at all levels of government. And once again he won, and it took 10 years, but he won. The Supreme Court of the Philippines ruled that Manila Bay must be cleaned up, that each part of the government must draw up plans, and that the court would appoint a commission to monitor the cleanup while keeping jurisdiction over the case until the job was done. And the justice who wrote the decision appointed himself to chair the commission. Tony Oposa is a scuba diver, a professor, an activist, a lawyer, all things that make a great leader. But he doesn't lead by giving orders to others, but by supporting the work of many. He inspires. Maybe we can persuade him to tell us today how he is going to combat an automobile-dependent economy. Tony Oposa.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon to everybody. I will not give a lecture, I will just tell you stories. One is the story of the king, and the other is a little of the stories that I do and an unfolding story. First story of the king. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a place that was so rich, so beautiful, a lot of trees, a lot of animals, the sea was rich, the waters were clean, the air was clean. And the king liked to roam his kingdom. So, but his feet would get hurt with the stones and the sticks that littered the roads. So he had an idea. He said, you know, there are so many animals anyway. So he issued a royal decree. From now on, all the cattle, all the cows, horses will be killed. And then the hide, the leather, will be used to line the roads. So that was what people did. They killed everything, almost everything. When the air became foul with the meat that was no longer eatable. The sea, the rivers, the water of the rivers would be dirty because of the leech. And the people got mad. They went to the king, said, Your Highness, this cannot go on. At the rate we are doing this, we will not have animals to help us in our farms. We will not have anything to eat, but worse, our children and our children's children will no longer have something to eat and help them in their farms. So the king was faced with a crisis. In Chinese, the character of crisis represents two other characters. First is danger, the other is opportunity. The king saw the danger, he would be unseated. But he also saw the opportunity to show his wisdom as the king. So, first he humbled himself, he stood up from his throne, he went down from the pedestal, walked out to the gate of the palace, and then in the road, he knelt down, that was lined with leather, he knelt down, he pulled out his knife, he cut 2 pieces of leather, and then with those 2 pieces of leather, he wrapped his feet. My friends, that is the story of the first shoe. It is also the story of conservation. We don't use up everything today because there's still tomorrow. Number 2, of course, it is the story of crisis. Every crisis is an opportunity. And number 4, the most important, but that is what happens when there is a mind shift. Mind shift from wasteful use to use that is wise, befitting a role as the king of the earth. Remember, this man says, be careful with your thoughts which we express in our words because they will become our destiny. Our destiny today, all the problems that we're in now is because of our thoughts that we express in our words. Environment. What is the environment? Ma'am, can you stand up please? Yeah, so you can stretch your legs. This is a recitation period. Watch out you guys at the back. Hello, can you do my, hello? Is my lapel mic please? Hello? Can you hear? Okay. What is the environment? No answer is wrong. There is no recitation, there is no graded recitation. But what is the environment?
Living being outside of ourselves.
Okay, very good. You sir, please stand up. Yes sir.
Yes, sir.
What is the environment?
For me, the environment is everything that we're a part of on this planet.
Very good. Everything is correct, but lacking. That is the problem with the word environment. First, it is in English. It does not resonate. I'm a Filipino. It does not resonate in my brain. It's something around us. The world is my brain environment. It is not even in English. It is French. It is something that is around us. The gentleman said it is part that we are part of. But you ask 10, 20 people of the meaning of the word environment, they'll probably give you 20 different answers. There lies our basic difficulty. What is the environment? Is it about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees? No, it is about life and the sources of life, of land, air, and water. These are the vital organs of the earth. Where the trees and the forests are the heart and the lungs of the earth, without which we cannot breathe. Where do we get our oxygen? From the trees. Every time we cut the tree, we cut a part of our lung. Where the soil and the land is the skin and the flesh of the earth from whence we get our food. Where the sea and the rivers are the blood and the bloodstreams of life. My friends, once we understand that, once we rephrase the word environment, redefine the word environment, then everything else becomes easy. Because everybody is talking about the same page. Who wants to drink dirty water? No one. Who wants to breathe dirty air? Who wants to eat poison food? No one. Everybody is an environment. Economics, we're all crazy about economics, but forgetting that the foundation of all economics is the land, the air, and the water. If I had $1 billion, ma'am, you had all the water, but you won't give me water, can I drink my $1 billion? In argumentation and debate, it is called reductio ad absurdum, reducing the argument of absurdity. But that is what the economists like to teach us. We call these countries developed economies. But what is economics? Economics is defined as the efficient use of scarce resources. But these countries are so-called developed countries because they use up the most resources. Such that, look at that, they throw away food. Look at this, look at that, they throw away food. Is waste economical? The definition of a developed economy is that which consumes the most. Is waste economical? Of course not. But that is they say, if every human being, now 7 billion plus, were to copy the lifestyle of one of these countries, we will need 9 Earths. Ma'am, we've been around for some time. How many Earths do we have? Yes?
1 Earth.
1 Earth. So we're copying the wrong model. We develop economy. So that is the economics of extraction and consumption. Restorative, so is the opposite of extraction and consumption is conservation, protection, and restoration economics. I also call it restorative economics. Restoring the land, air, and water that makes life possible. Restoring the lost connection between man and nature, like what Gary was talking about. Restoring the frame fabric of human society. And most of all, restoring the common sense goal of life, which is the pursuit of happiness. It is not the pursuit of $1 billion. So, my friends, I only have, they just asked me to give this talk at 9 o'clock this morning. because my friend MC Mehta could not make it. He's my brother, he's my soul brother from India. But I just have one little favor to ask you. Please stop calling them developed countries and us developing countries. Please. Thank you. Because those MC Mehta and I talked, we were in Britain one day, in UK, we were having tea. And we said, why are they calling us developing as they develop? In the first place, that makes us feel inferior. Who started all the, we were advanced civilizations when these countries were still killing each other. Who started the world wars? It was not our developing countries. Number 2, which is even worse, is because developing, they are developed, we're copying them. The lady said we only have one. So wrong model. Okay, now for the war stories. This is the Philippines. John already told you about it earlier. We are one of the 17 mega diversity countries in the world, which hold almost all the biological wealth of the earth. Ma'am, can you read that from here? The Philippines. You can stand up so you can stretch your legs a little bit.
It is reasonable to think of the Philippines as the Galapagos Islands multiplied tenfold.
But looking at using the paradigm, the economic paradigm of extraction and consumption, look at what happened. In less than 100 years, this was all the green is all the forest, and look at what happened. In less than 100 years. And guess who was our colonizer during that time? Who brought in the chainsaws and who bought all our timber? The country that calls itself a developed economy. My friends, I am not a lawyer. I am only a storyteller. I was a very young lawyer. I wanted to tell the story. But if you go to CNN, you go to the media, they won't listen to you. So I said, the only way by which I can tell a story is to record the law. I am not going to litigate. I'm just a small ant. So I filed a case against the Philippine government saying that there were only 800,000 hectares left in virgin forests in the Philippines. Yet the government granted logging concessions to an area of 4 million hectares. No matter what calculator you use, it will not add up. You are going to liquidate 5 times more than what was available. But as John was saying, I said, and then we were cutting it down at the rate of 120,000 hectares per year. So in less than 7 years, my son was then 3 years old. I said, this is not going to work. By the time he gets to be 7 years old, there's nothing going to be left. So I said, he is the real party in interest, who will suffer the irrevocable damage and irreparable injury. So, but of course, the court dismissed it outright. the court did not quite understand what it was talking about. The question was whether or not they had personality to sue, to bring the case in court, them representing themselves and future generations. That's not in the law books. Who was that who was talking about who were working on the timber license agreements here in Oregon? I was here when you guys were fighting the spotted owl. We're fighting for the spotted owl. You still are? That's a 20-year battle. Anyway, this was the decision of the court. It said, can you read it? Can you read it, sir? I called you earlier. Can you read that?
The day would not be too far when all else would be lost, not only for this generation, but also for succeeding generations. Generations which stand to inherit nothing but a parched earth incapable of sustaining life.
You know, the beauty there is that when that case was pending, the Secretary of Environment used that case to call all the logging concessionaires and says, look, I'm being sued. So from now on, I'm going to cancel all the logging concessions in the remaining 800,000 hectares. And then it became part of protected areas in the Philippines. Good luck. It's fortune favors the foolish. Now our seas. Our seas, rich as our land is, our sea is even richer. Look at this book from the UNFAO. What is the richest marine waters of Earth? It said there's the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. But the center of marine biodiversity on Earth is that place called the Philippines, the red part there. See? That's the Manila Bay. But we've turned Manila Bay into a sewer. In 1999, I had just come back from doing my master's, and I said, time to tell another story. So, initiated the case. After 10 years, the Supreme Court ruled that they should clean up. And the beauty there is they have to report every 3 months. So, and I also was doing direct action right here in the Visayan Sea. I have these are some of the people I arrested. Those of you who like human rights, do not look at that. But we ran after the syndicates. And then got me into trouble. We went after the commercial fishing boats. And then I get myself an assassination contract. Shortly after I was here, that was 2006, and to the great credit then Svitlana Kravchenko and John Bonine, they helped mobilize the world to write to our president to protect me. John Bonine, please take a bow. Please give him a round of applause. But that is not the success. The success is those who I arrested are now my allies. Are now not only my allies, my advocates. Why? Because I tell the court to convict them, but let them go on suspended sentence, but they will serve as fish wardens to protect them, what they destroy. Remember, life is about redemption. We all commit mistakes, but let us give them a chance to correct their mistakes. Even the commercial fishermen are now helping me. And this is my place there. I've long reserved one of those hammocks there. This is my home. I've long reserved one of my hammocks there for John Bonine, but he's coming next year. Yeah, we would teach kids there. I used it to teach kids and bring them out to the sea. Even our waste is ground. We will shred them and then we turn them into fish condominiums. You know, those are fish condominiums. Have you ever heard of fish condominium? Yeah, now look at that. And then it all changed when the strongest typhoon that ever hit landfall came 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago. They did what happened to my house. It was not damaged, it was erased. And then, so, the climate, I don't call it climate change anymore. Climate change or the change. Climate changes from morning to afternoon, or even sometimes. I call it the climate crisis. Because the climate crisis, words matter a lot. The climate crisis conveys a sense, not just of urgency, but sense of emergency. Look at that. I'm teaching climate justice for future generations now at the University of Hawaii. Raven is my student, one of them is I encourage to come over. My friends, just as a note, remember each and every one of us has the power to do something. You don't have to wait for government. A simple thing like Look at that, the television set. That thing is on with that red light. How long does it take to turn that off? Do you know that the lights and the television sets of the United States alone being on standby without anybody watching it? The United States alone, we're not even counting Europe, but the United States alone consumes 1 billion watts of electricity per year when nobody is even watching it. 1 billion, that's equivalent to what? 8 power plants? Another one is this. You have, all you need is a light. All you need is you need the light? Can you do not have a watch? Or you don't need that. My friends, it's all about common sense. You all brush your teeth, but maybe you can use a glass of water instead of letting the tap run. But the point being, we cannot ask government to change. They say pro, in Congress, Gary was talking about Congress, said is pro, if pro is the opposite of con, progress is the opposite of Congress. And they're all politicians. You know the definition of a politician? They have, with a few exceptions, they have two sides of their brains, the left and the right. The left cannot do anything right, and the right has nothing left. So, even my students, I require all of them, part of their final grade. Raven is here, look at that, they're all planting vegetables. This is about what we were saying, Gary, about reconnecting to the soil. We forget that. I said, if that's the only thing that you learn from me for the entire semester, I shall have fed you for the rest of your lives. Now, for the unfolding story, I'll go through this. Look at this. Is this the way to live? To be in traffic? Here, I do not know if you have such a bad traffic, but Los Angeles is, and the second or third worst traffic jams are found in Hawaii. Why? All because we like to use cars, or rather the structure of roads are designed to use cars. What are the disadvantages of a car-based system? Look at this. This is how it looks like in the Philippines. Don't come to Manila. If you want to come, tell John Bonite will borrow his hammock in my house in the island. But look at that. Is that the way to live? So what's happening? See, roads change everything. This is not just about the Philippines. Look at this. This is the parking lot called Los Angeles 50. What is the disadvantages of car-based system? Sir, can you stand up, please? Extend one of your arms. There. See, that's 1 square meter. This is now here. This is 1 square meter, more or less. Standing up, what's your name, sir? Zach. Standing up, Zach occupies only 1/4, 1/8 of a square meter. Zach, please sit down. Sitting down, he occupies 1/4 of a square meter. But using a car, he occupies at least 15 square meters. What is the most valuable resource of a city? Space. Why are we wasting it? Just for the purpose. Are roads meant to move people, or are roads meant to move vehicles? That's the fundamental question of this world. We waste all of this metal, 2,000 kilos of metal, 5,000 pounds of metal to transport 170 kilos of a human being. Isn't that waste? That is the problem. And worse, pollution, etc., etc. Look at this. Very simple. This illustrates everything. See that? 60 cars. If you took out all the 60 people there, you put them here, they're all fit. What happens to this? It becomes vacant. These are commonsensical thoughts. Water, we use water. We use so much water. In a place like California, with so many cars, they wash their cars almost every week. They're wasting water. So it's an economy based on waste. Look at this. This is the Philippines. Less than 1% of the Filipinos own cars. Yet all of the roads are given to them. People are not even given a proper sidewalk. At least here, I see a lot of bike lanes and bigger sidewalks. Look at this. These are the figures. Can you read this, sir? Ma'am, can you read that? The one on the left.
Unhealthy. This
No,
one.
this one. Okay.
This one runs on hydrocarbons and makes you sick.
Can you read the other books? Can you read the other one?
This one runs on carbohydrates and makes you healthy.
There you go. That is, and you know, every human being must walk 10,000 steps a day, or about 5 kilometers, 3.5 miles. How many steps do we walk? Hardly anything this way. We have all kinds of diseases. And climate crisis. Do you know, today at 3:30 in the afternoon, there is a forum on sustainable transportation. I read it, that 50% of greenhouse gas emissions in Oregon is because of the motor vehicle. That's as bad as it can get. Because in the whole world, the entire life cycle of a car, from mining of ore to mining of making of steel, oil, etc., transport of steel, is responsible for more than 50%. For more than 50% of all climate gases. So, what does it? This is the story of the king. Instead of using leather to line the roads, maybe we need to think differently. Those of you, we all know the difficulties, but that, you know, in sociology it's called inertia of collective insanity. We all know it is wrong, but we go ahead because nobody has thought of it otherwise. So we need not only to think out of the box, but to actually jump out of the box, to turn the box upside down, and then shake it. Because wouldn't it be nice, instead of this, we'll have this? Nice. It's already happening. So what we need to do is a 180-degree mind shift from use of roads for motor vehicles to roads built for people, from encouraging private transportation, private wasteful transportation, to promoting improved public transportation. From wasting space to efficient use of space. From scrambling over the last inch of road to giving away space. Look at this. Am I talking about the moon? Those of you who've been to Amsterdam, you can see that. 1/3 is for people, 1/3 is for bicycles, and 1/3 is for public transportation. But in certain countries, and I will not tell you what countries these are because they are obvious, people have become so accustomed to their cars. And that's not bad enough. But because of Los Angeles, you export the idea to the Philippines. You export the idea. I went to Nairobi. Jack and I were in Nairobi last June. The traffic jams are horrible. Why? Because everybody wants to copy the lifestyle of Los Angeles. Wrong model. These are all, look at this. I invented this. And I had a friend manufacture. It's a on rail, wind pedal. I had a bus. You can pedal. You can pedal a bus, and then if you pedal, it's on rails. If you pedal, you don't pay, you just pay 50%. Think differently. Then you explore, is that a joke? Look at this. This is in Belém, Brazil. So they're all having coffee together, they're all having fun, and then pedaling their way. You can Google that, it's called Esponja. You Google it, Brazil. I just came from, last weekend, I just came from New Orleans. This is what they have in New Orleans. It's a very beautiful trolley system. And you can even make it more fun, like this one, see? You can have like training for kids. These are the benefits of a shift in the mindset. I'm not changing roads, my friend. I'm trying to change mindset, and it is much, much more difficult. These are all I've listed about 25 benefits. And it's not even a dream. It's already contained in an obscure law in the Philippines. Look at that. So what I do, another time to tell a story. Gary was just saying earlier, the top-down, there are two social changes. Social changes happen in generally two ways. Top-down, bottom-up. Top-down is fast, but does not last, because when the top is changed, everything else changes. Bottom-up lasts, but takes very long. The fastest social changes happen when the top meets the bottom. It's called the sandwich theory. social change. How is that going to be implemented? Well, time to tell a story, and the way I tell a story is through a court, because when I file a case in court, people will have to listen. So, last February 17, a little over a year ago, I decided to initiate legal action. But 2 days before I initiated the legal action, I invited all the cabinet secretaries for breakfast. These are all the cabinet secretaries to the Philippines that I was going to sue, and I said, good morning, I'm going to sue all of you on Monday. So they're all smiling, look, they're all smiling, they're all very happy. So Monday we filed the case, came out in the newspaper, look, give us back our roads. Again, roads were meant for people, it was not meant for motor vehicles. I will tell you more, look, and then finally, this is the whole idea of road sharing. The demand that we have is divide all the roads by half. Half for motor vehicles and half for people. People to walk, people to bike. Traffic is going to be horrible. Good. Because that will spur you to think. Look at what happened. This we tried it there September 14. Look how happy they are. Biking, walking, and these are all they look like they're all going to a funeral. And then, pushing the sandwich theory of social change, last January 4, 2 days before I left for Hawaii to teach, I invited the president of the Mayor's League, the president of the Mayor's League of Cebu, the mayor of Cebu, president of the Mayor's League of the Philippines. This is his second most powerful man in the Philippines, the Senate president. This is the cabinet secretary for transportation, the cabinet secretary for public works, and then the cyclists, etc., etc. The law students story. This is the power of law students. And then we talked to the Metro Manila Development Authority. Then last February 15, I went home from Hawaii for a while to get this to happen, to seize the momentum. Look, we got 4 cabinet secretaries to join us. These are the grandchildren. They were all there. You can see that. So people biking, and look what happened. From a road like this, to look what happened. To be a couple with us, but he's watching us smiling from some star. Very good. My friend David Foreman is there. He's my co-professor in the University of Hawaii. Bert Johnson and the ILO. Is Julia here, and Liz, they're doing great work. Rugi Melesa, who was my classmate, Tori, where's Tori? She here? Oh, there you go. Tori and the PIELC team, together with my student Raymond, my friends, they are the future. They are the ones who made this work. Tori and team, please stand up. Give them a round of applause. I just have 3 take-home messages. I will leave a copy of this presentation if you want a copy. Number 1, do not believe in the impossible. The impossible is only so because no one has yet tried it. I told you the stories of some of the things that I've done because what I thought was impossible actually began to happen. Fortune favors the brave. Without courage, all virtues are useless. That is why I teach my students, think with your heart. Do not think with your brain. You know, the Western world thinks too much with your brain. That's why you end up with what is known as the paralysis by analysis. You analyze too much, but do nothing. Our motto in my class is, possible, we will do this afternoon. The miracles will wait until tomorrow morning. Number 2 is, there is no limit to what we can achieve when we do not care who gets the credit. Look at that. We parted, it was like the parting of the Red Sea. Something that I thought was impossible. But it happened. It's not happening overnight. It is happening slowly at the time. And number 3, my friends, the time for talk is over. We have so many meetings, the UN Framework on Climate Convention on Climate Change, have been meeting for the last 20 years. They have not even agreed where to put the comma and the period. They will have a meeting in Paris in December. I represent Micronesia in the Montreal Protocol and sometimes God made you stand up. It looks like we were talking in our sleep. But I will also make, they say man is most active when he is standing up. He is most creative when he lying down. The compromise is to sit down. We compromise too much. You guys have been sitting down for the last 2 hours. Please stand up. And please read this with me. Don't follow me. Read this with me. Read it with me. I know you probably have not had lunch yet, but read it with me. And read it not with your brain, but with your heart. Begin. 10, 50, 100 years. Wait. I don't hear the people at the back. Louder, please. Again. 10, 50, 100 years from now, and many generations hereafter. Let it be said that in our knowledge, gifted with intelligence and insight, with privilege and position, with the wealth of wisdom, and the freedom and power of my will. Let it be said that in our time, and during our watch, we take our share. And maybe, just maybe, we will make a little difference. You, each and every one of you, is already making a difference. But there is much more to do. And these young people here are also doing their share. They say it is easy to make money, but it is more meaningful to make a little difference. Thank you and good afternoon.